my topic of discussion is in embryo and female reproductive system, development of female reproductive system. And in this, we have three major determinants for the development of the sex. One is chromosomal sex. It means this is determined at the time of fertilization itself, that what chromosomal complement we have, that is XX or XY. Then comes the gonadal sex, that is a sex determination, what the embryo is going to get, whether it is going to be testes or the ovary. And then third is the phenotypic sex, that is a sex differentiation, what external genitalia, what genital tracts that embryo is going to get. Next. This phenotypic sex, in this, this diagram is very important. In here, we have the Wolffian duct and Mullerian duct. An embryo gets its Wolffian duct at around 5th week and the Mullerian duct at around 6th week. Now, Wolffian duct it's something that needs a push to develop. So it needs a testosterone push so that it can grow up into a full male reproductive system. But Mullerian duct, it is considered to be a default process that by default only it grows up into a full female reproductive system. But now if a Wolffian duct has to grow, what happens is if in an embryo we have XY chromosome, this Y chromosome has it has a SRY gene. Now this SRY gene promotes the formation of Leydig cells and the Sertoli cells. Leydig cells, please keep it on, stay on the slide. This Leydig cell, it produces testosterone. Now this testosterone, it gives a push and promotes the development of Wolffian duct and then the male reproductive system. But on the other hand, the Sertoli cells produces AMH, which in turn inhibits the Mullerian duct. So there will be a development of male reproductive system. But on the other hand, if the embryo has XX, there won't be any SRY gene, there won't be any development of testosterone and no AMH. So by default only, the Mullerian duct will grow. But now studies have come out that XX chromosome have few genes, that is WNT4, that is a member of wingless family, then R spondin 1. These genes, they help in the growth of Mullerian duct by promoting it and also by inhibiting the XBOX9 factor, which in turn is used to promote the SRY gene. Next, please. Now, this is the blanket thing. The female reproductive system, it consists of ovaries. They are developed from the genital ridge, fallopian tubes, uterus, and the upper 3/4 of the vagina from the Mullerian tubes. And the last is the lower 1/4 of the vagina, which is formed from urogenital sinus. In the next slide, we'll see how it, yeah, next slide, please. Next, please. Yeah. This diagram, this whole orange and yellow thing, the complete diagram is a urogenital. Now from here, we will see how the gonadal development happens. On the left side, we have the hindgut. Inside of this hindgut, we have yolk sac, endodermal yolk sac. And the whole complete coelomic epithelium is lining the dorsal mesentery. Now this continues completely. And just after this dorsal mesentery, there is this proliferation of coelomic epithelium that leads to the formation of genital ridge. And lateral to the genital ridge, we have a swelling that is the mesonephric swelling. And the mesonephric duct where it forms a male reproductive system. And in the end, lateral to mesonephric duct, we have an invagination of the coelomic epithelium that in future makes a paramesonephric duct. Now what happens? At around 5th week, genital ridge is formed. And at 6th week, these primordial germ cells, that is in the green color, these germ cells, they arises from the yolk, endoderm of the yolk sac, and start traveling from the dorsal mesentery to the genital ridge. Once they reach the genital ridge, this yellow epithelium, coelomic epithelium cells, they start covering it all around and forming it a pregranulosa cells. And then in future, it becomes granulosa cell and the follicular cells. This is how the ovary is formed in here. Now, once the ovary has formed, what happens? There won't be any SRY or any AMH to inhibit the paramesonephric duct and for the formation of mesonephric. So in turn, what happens? Mesonephric duct will get suppressed and there will be the proliferation and the formation of the paramesonephric, in turn the Mullerian duct and the female reproductive system. But before getting degenerated, this mesonephric duct, it gives off a cranial elongation that becomes a metanephric duct and is responsible for the development of renal system. Next slide, please. Next. Now, this is the whole system, the urogenital system. As we just saw in the previous slide, we have the mesoderm of the urogenital system, that is genital ridge. The medial part becomes the ovaries. Central middle part, which had that mesonephric duct, it will get degenerated in the females. And the lateral most part, that is the invagination of the coelomic epithelium, it will form the future fallopian tubes, uterus, and the upper 3/4 of vagina. And we have one more urogenital sinus. That urogenital sinus in future forms the lower 1/3 of the vagina and vulva, and also the external genitalia, female genitalia. Next slide, please. Next slide, Shweta. Now the ovaries. During the development, the ovaries start forming at around 10th thoracic level. But as the embryo grows, it comes down to the lumbar region. But from the lumbar region to the pelvic region, it is brought down by the gubernaculum. Gubernaculum is nothing but a mesonephric ligament. What happens is gubernaculum, it catch holds onto the ovary and bring down into the brim of the pelvis. We'll see in the next slide what happens to the gubernaculum thereafter. And then the primordial germ cells, as we have seen, it is the oocytes are formed from primordial germ cells. Coelom forms the pregranulosa cells, and the primordial follicles in future. Stromal cells form the theca cell. And at around 20th week, the primordial germ cells, they continues to grow and they become 6 to 7 million germ cells. Half of them enters into the meiosis and half of them continues to grow, divide as in the form of mitosis. So at birth, we get only around 1 million follicles. By puberty, only 4 lakh follicles are left, and only 400 out of them, they ovulate. Next slide, please. Now the descent of the ovary. The green part that you can see, it is the gubernaculum. That is the mesonephric ligament. Now what happens as it pulls down the ovary, what happens, we have the cranial portion of the gubernaculum and the caudal part of the gubernaculum. The caudal part of the gubernaculum, it attaches the lower pole of the ovary, touches the uterus just below the fallopian tube, and comes down and attaches to the urogenital part, which in future becomes the labia majora. Now what happens as it brings down the ovary, and in future all the gubernaculum, that is the mesonephric ligament, it gets degenerated and forms a future ligament. So the cranial part of the gubernaculum, the topmost green level, it becomes the infundibulopelvic ligament in future. And the other part, the caudal part of the gubernaculum, the one that is at the lower pole of the ovary and the uterus, it becomes the ovarian ligament. And the part touching the uterus, it gets completely degenerated. And the left out part, it becomes a round ligament of the uterus, which ends up attaching the labia majora. Next slide. So the applied of the development of the ovaries, there could be agenesis or the complete absence of the ovaries that can happen in Turner syndrome or mosaicism. And then gonadal dysgenesis or the streak ovaries, same again in the Turner syndrome. Failure of descent of the ovaries or over-testicular DSDs. Next, please. Now the development of the genital ducts. Next. Now, what happens at around 6th week, we get the red portion, we get our Wolffian duct. And at around 6th week, we get our paramesonephric ducts. Now, these paramesonephric ducts on the both sides, they come together and join in the midline and opens up into the urogenital sinus. Down there, this round portion, it is a urogenital sinus. When it enters into the urogenital sinus, it forms a bulb, that is the sinovaginal bulb. Now, what happens? The tubes that has come together, what happens in future, the center part of the tube, it gets dissolved and it becomes one full cavity. And the Wolffian duct, it starts degenerating in future. Next slide. As you can see here, mesonephric tubes degenerates in female after giving off the metanephric part for the formation of the renal system, as we have learned before. Now, the paramesonephric duct, it develops as a mesodermal invagination of the lateral surface of the urogenital ridge. Now, what happens, this mesonephric duct, it starts degenerating as it is not getting any of the testosterone. And there is no AMH to inhibit the paramesonephric or the Mullerian duct. So what happens is the mesonephric duct degenerates and the paramesonephric duct, it proliferates and it comes closer. The uterine canal is formed, the septate, it gets dissolved, and this This becomes the whole cavity, uterus, cervix, and the upper part of the vagina. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, the caudal end meets and fuse in the midline to form the uterovaginal canal and projects into posterior wall of the urogenital sinus, causing a small swelling that is the sinovaginal bulb, or also called Mullerian or the genital tubercle, and also bring together the two peritoneal folds. That's the future ligament. What happens is the paramesonephric tubes, that is this blue color, they are covered with the peritoneal layer. Now, when they come closer and together, they also bring that covering of their own. So in future, that covering becomes a broad ligament of the uterus. Now, it forms a corpus, that is the uterus, cervix, and the upper vagina. And the cranial unfused part, it forms a fallopian tubes in future. Next slide, please. Now, the same thing. In the absence of testis determining factor, that is the testosterone and AMH, mesonephric duct will completely disappear. But somehow we get the remnants of it, the mesonephric duct. So that is the cranial part is the epophoron. If we get the remnant of the mesonephric duct, just below the ovary, it is the epophoron. And just below that, we have the perophoron. And sometimes just near lateral surfaces of the vagina, if we have a cyst, upper lateral surface of the cyst, that could be the Gardner's duct, that is still again the remnant of mesonephric duct. Now, we know that the close association between the mesonephric and the renal system, that the metanephric ducts start developing into renal system, it arises from the mesonephric duct itself. So it has a great significance as the congenital anomalies of the like there occurs 50% of the congenital anomalies, they coexist. If there is any problem in the Mullerian duct or in the Wolffian duct, so 50% of chances are there we are going to get some or the other anomaly in the renal system too. So 50% chances. Next slide, please. Now the development of vagina, as we have seen, the two tubes come together and it opens up into the urogenital sinus, forming a urogenital, that is the sinovaginal bulb. Now what happens in future, this sinovaginal bulb, that is yellow in color, it elongates cranially to just to increase the length of the vagina. It elongates cranially, and by that time it becomes a solid vaginal plate. But with time, what happens, the cells in the solid, this vaginal plate, it desquamates and canalizes vagina by 5th month. So the complete vagina, it is formed of the Mullerian tube and the urogenital sinus. Next slide, please. So the vagina, upper 2/3 of the vagina, it is formed by the fused Mullerian ducts, that is the uterovaginal canal. And the lower 1/3 of the vagina, it is formed of the urogenital sinus, that is the elongation of the vaginal plate. So this explains the presence of small blind vagina in case of Mullerian agenesis, because if Mullerian agenesis happens, so there will be the absence of only the upper 2/3 of the vagina, but still we get this lower 1/3 of the blind pouch of the vagina. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now the external genitalia. As we know, the urogenital sinus is responsible for the formation of lower 1/3 of the vagina. Now what happens is the end of this urogenital sinus, it is covered by a cloacal membrane. This cloacal membrane, what happens, the mesoderm of this cloacal membrane starts proliferating in the anterior part of this cloacal membrane, anterior part. So it comes out as a conical projection, which in future becomes a genital tubercle. Now, if this genital tubercle does not get any testosterone, so it will get converted into clitoris. So basically, the anterior end of the cloacal membrane, after forming the conical projection, if there is no testosterone, it will form the clitoris. And same this cloacal membrane, it forms the eminences medial to that. So that becomes genital folds and the labia minora in future. And lateral to that, we get this genital swellings. And in future, become the labia majora. Next slide, please. So at around 10th weeks, there is no external differentiation of the sex, because by this time we are only getting the Mullerian duct and Wolffian ducts proliferation. By the end of the 12th week, we get to see the external genitalia. And in the absence of androgens, genital tubercle becomes clitoris, genital folds become labia minora, and genital swellings, as you know, labia majora. And the rest of the urogenital sinus it comes out as a vestibule of vagina. Next slide. Yeah, the applied for the congenital malformations. Now, in external genitalia, what all can happen is either we can get the narrow introitus because of the rigid hymen, or we can get the imperforate hymen. In vagina, we can have the vaginal septums. We can have the transverse vaginal septums that can occur at the high transverse vaginal septum. It can be middle or the low transverse vaginal septum. If it is middle and the low transverse vaginal septum, so vaginally we can approach and we can break off the septum. But if it is a high transverse vaginal septum, we have to go for the by approach. That is one from the abdominally and from the vaginally. Both the approaches we have to go through. Then we can also have the longitudinal vaginal septum, in which we can have a complete longitudinal septum with two separate cornuas, biconvate uterus, in that becomes a uterus bicornis bicollis with a complete vaginal septum. Or we can also get one of the obstructed hemivagina. Then we can have partial atresia of the vagina and complete atresia of the vagina that can happen in MRKH syndrome or AIS syndrome. Next slide, please. This is the applied and the malformations of the uterine, cervical, and vaginal malformations. Basically, ESHRE, that is the European Society of Human Reproductive and Embryology, they gave it in 2013, the classes of the malformation. According to them, in the uterine anomalies, 0 is the normal uterus. In U1, we have just the dysmorphic uterus. That is, either it could be T-shaped or infantilis or the others. In U2, that is the septate uterus. In this septate uterus, what they say is, it is basically the internal indentation. If it is more than 50% of the uterine wall thickness, and external contour is straight, or the indentation is less than 50%, so this comes under U2 class. It has either partial or complete septate uterus. In U3, that is the bicorporeal uterus. In this, what happens? The external indentation, it is more than 50% of the uterine wall thickness. That is in 3A, that is the partial bicorporeal uterus. But in B, that is, we have the complete bicorporeal uterus. The width of the fundal indentation, it is more than 150% of the uterine wall thickness. And then we also have bicorporeal septate, that we get the septa also in between sometimes. In U4, we have the hemiuterus. Hemiuterus could be with the rudimentary cavity. It could be communicating or non-communicating, and or without rudimentary cavity. That is, with or without cavity we can have. And in the last, U5, we have aplastic uterus. Aplastic uterus, that is the absence of the uterus, but it can have a rudimentary cavity along with it, or it can be without, nothing will be there. In U6 as unclassified malformations. Same likewise, we have cervical and vaginal anomalies also. CO, when the normal, C0 is when the normal suffix is there. C1, when the cervix is septate. 2, when the double normal suffixes are there. In C3, unilateral cervical aplasia. One cervix is there, but the other is aplastic. In C4, we have the cervical aplasia. We have no cervix over there. Aplastic cervix. Sorry. Then the vaginal we have just done, but still V1, under V1 we have longitudinal non-obstructing vaginal septum. V2, longitudinal but obstructing. One vaginal septum is obstructed. V3, transverse vaginal septum or the imperforate hymen. In V4, we have the vaginal aplasias. That's it from the next slide, please. Thank you.
Nice presentation, Dr. Akanksha. You've covered all the things.
Thank you.